That's my husband, Michael. See that grin? It's the same one he wore on our wedding day. But this time, he isn't promising to love me. He's in court insisting he deserves half of everything I've worked for my company, my legacy, my whole empire just because he believes he can. My name is Evelyn Reed. I'm 42 years old. By all accounts, I was the queen of a perfect life. CEO of a multi-million-dollar tech firm in San Francisco. A penthouse overlooking the bay. A collection of vintage cars. I had it all, including what I thought was a perfect, supportive husband. But sometimes, the things that seem perfect are actually the most fragile. I sat in that cold leather chair while his lawyer described me as a distracted workaholic. Michael nodded along, putting on the performance of his life. The room felt heavy with his greed. He was sure he'd already won. Sure it was just another obstacle he could talk his way past. He had no idea what was coming when he made his final, arrogant demand in that quiet, wood-paneled room. I stayed silent. I reached into my bag. Everyone watched me. My lawyer tensed up. Michael's grin grew, thinking I was about to pull out a tissue and start crying. But I slid a single, plain, manila envelope across the polished mahogany desk toward the judge. The judge looked through the envelope. His stern face changed for a moment. Then, he did something no one saw coming. He looked straight at my husband, who was still grinning, and started to laugh. It wasn't just a small laugh, it was deep, loud, and full of disbelief. That's when Michael's smile vanished forever. What was in that envelope? What secret did I unearth that could unravel a man so completely in front of everyone? This isn't just a story about divorce. This is a story about the perfect revenge. If you want to see how a wolf in sheep's clothing gets exposed and how I turned his own game against him, keep watching. And for stories about justice served, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell so you don't miss what happens next. To understand the end, you have to understand the beginning. And our beginning was something out of a fairy tale, or at least, that's what I was made to believe. I met Michael 3 years ago at a charity gala at the De Young Museum. He was 35, charming, and devastatingly handsome. And unlike the arrogant tech bros I was used to, he seemed genuinely interested in me, not my net worth. He was a freelance consultant, he said. He loved the freedom it gave him. His hobby was photography, and he made me feel like I was his favorite subject to capture. He painted a picture of a simple man who valued experiences over possessions. Our whirlwind romance was a headline in the society pages. Tech titan Evelyn Reed finds love with charming entrepreneur. He moved into my Pacific Heights penthouse, and for a while, my cold, minimalist palace of glass and steel finally felt like a home. He'd cook elaborate meals, fill the rooms with flowers, and plan spontaneous trips to Napa. He wasn't just my husband. He became my best friend, my biggest cheerleader, or so I thought. He integrated himself so perfectly. He'd offer friendly advice about my board members. He'd suggest we combine our finances to simplify things, to be a true team. I, blinded by what I thought was love, began to let him in. A signatory on a smaller account here, a co-title on a property there. He called it building a life together. I called it trust. But there were cracks in the perfect facade. A receipt for a $15,000 watch I never saw. Vague explanations about high-stakes business meetings that always seemed to happen when I was out of town. Once, I picked up his iPad by mistake, thinking it was mine. It was open to a real estate listing for a multi-million-dollar villa in Lake Como. When I asked him about it, he laughed it off. A guy can dream, right, Evie? Just looking at what our future could hold. I wanted to believe him, so I did. The real change started subtly. He began talking about how stressful my job was and how I should consider taking a step back. Maybe even appointing a COO to handle the day-to-day. He even had a candidate in mind, an old college friend of his. He'd say, "Let me take some of this weight off your shoulders, my love. You've earned a rest." It was a masterclass in manipulation. He was slowly, gently, trying to ease me out of my own empire. The final clue, the one that shattered the illusion, came from the most unlikely place. My head of security, a stoic, loyal man named Mark. He pulled me aside after a company event. He said, "Miss Reed, this is probably nothing, but Mr. Reed's new car? The Aston Martin? I ran the plates. It's not leased under his name or yours. It's registered to a shell corporation, one that also owns a private jet hangar in Palo Alto. A cold dread, colder than any San Francisco fog, washed over me. The loving husband, the simple consultant, was living a double life funded by secrets. But I had no proof, only a sickening feeling in the pit of my stomach that my entire marriage was a beautifully constructed lie. The pieces were there, but I couldn't see the whole picture. Not yet. I was about to learn that the man I shared my bed with wasn't dreaming of a future with me. He was meticulously planning his takeover. How do you uncover a truth someone is desperate to hide? What would you do if you suspected the person you loved most was a stranger? If you're hooked already, make sure you like and subscribe because the trap is about to be sprung, and you won't believe how deep the deception goes. The illusion was shattered. The loving wife was gone. Now, I was a CEO on a mission. This was no longer about saving my marriage. It was about surviving it. I hired a discreet and terrifyingly efficient private investigator. No more, Mr. Reed, I said. Find everything. And what he unearthed was a web of deceit so vast. It took my breath away. The simple consultant was a professional grifter. Michael had a history of targeting wealthy, successful women. I wasn't his first mark. I was just his biggest score. The Lake Como villa wasn't a dream. He'd already put a down payment on it. The Shell Corporation wasn't just for cars. He'd been siphoning money from our joint accounts for months, funding a second life that included a 25-year-old aspiring actress he'd set up in a luxury apartment in Sausalito. The photos he took of me? They weren't about love. He'd been documenting my assets, my routines, and my vulnerabilities for his own files. The cruelty was in the details. He'd once bought me a beautiful, expensive necklace for my birthday. I found the receipt. He'd bought two. One for me, one for her. He'd taken her to the same restaurant in Paris where we'd celebrated our first anniversary. But the worst was yet to come. My investigator uncovered the real endgame. Michael wasn't just planning to divorce me and take his half. He was working with a shadowy investor to stage a hostile takeover of my company. He'd been feeding them internal financial data, weak points he'd learned from my trusting pillow talk conversations. He wasn't just trying to break my heart. He was trying to break me completely and walk away with the pieces. The injustice was a physical pain. I'd built this empire from my college dorm room. I'd sacrificed everything for it. And he thought he could just swan in, play the loving husband for a few years, and steal it all. The legal system felt like a trap. With the prenup I'd foolishly waived under his pressure, he was poised to get exactly what he wanted. I couldn't confront him. Not yet. I had to play the part of the oblivious, stressed-out CEO a little while longer. Every smile I faked felt like a betrayal of who I was. Every loving touch from him made my skin crawl. I was living a double life inside my own home. A gilded cage filled with lies. The moral challenge was constant. A part of me wanted to rage, to throw him out, to expose him to everyone we knew. But that would tip my hand. I had to be smarter, colder. I had to gather my evidence like ammunition and wait for the perfect moment to fire. And then, it happened. The event I knew was coming. He served me with divorce papers. His demands were astronomical. Half of everything, alimony, a stake in my company's future earnings. He stood in our living room, that familiar grin on his face, but now it looked like a predator's snarl. "It's just business, Evie," he said. "Don't take it personally." That's when I knew the war had officially begun. But he had no idea I'd already been building my arsenal for months. He thought he was launching an attack, but he was just walking directly into my crosshairs. What was the one piece of evidence so damning it could make a judge laugh a man out of court? The answer is coming up next. But first, if you believe karma needs a helping hand, smash that like button and subscribe for more. The day of the hearing arrived. The air in the courtroom was thick with his arrogance. Michael sat across from me, flanked by his expensive lawyer, already counting his money. He shot me a look, a mix of pity and triumph. He thought I was broken. He thought I had nothing. His lawyer stood, painting a masterpiece of manipulation. He spoke of my neglect, my obsession with work, and Michael's devoted efforts to save our marriage. He painted my husband as the wounded party, entitled to his fair share for his emotional distress. His audacity was breathtaking. Then it was Michael's turn. He took the stand, and he performed. He spoke with a trembling voice about his love for me, his disappointment, and how he just wanted what was rightfully his so that he could move on. He was convincing. I almost believed him myself. And then he said it. The lie would be his undoing. Under oath, he looked the judge dead in the eye and said, "Your Honor, I entered this marriage with nothing but love. I never cared about her money. I only ever wanted to build a life with her. Every single asset I have is a result of our shared efforts." A perfect, rehearsed, and utterly fatal lie. His lawyer rested their case. The judge looked at my attorney. "Any rebuttal? Any evidence to counter these claims?" My lawyer simply said, "My client has one item to submit into evidence. Your Honor." This was it. All those months of silent investigation, of pretending, of swallowing my rage. It all came down to this single moment. I didn't stand up. I didn't scream. I didn't even look at Michael. With a hand that did not shake, I reached into my bag and pulled out a single, plain manila envelope. I slid it across the smooth, cold surface of the table. The bailiff picked it up and delivered it to the judge. The room was silent, except for the rustle of paper as the judge opened it. Inside wasn't a document. It was a photograph. The judge's eyebrows furrowed. He pulled out another, and another. His stern expression began to change, to confusion, then to dawning amusement. He looked at Michael, then back at the photos, and then he did the one thing no one expected. He laughed. It wasn't a quiet chuckle. It was a deep, genuine, roaring laugh of pure disbelief. He held up one of the photos for the entire room to see. It was a picture of Michael, taken just 1 week before he met me at that charity gala. He was standing on a luxurious yacht in the Mediterranean, his arm around a much older woman, and he was wearing a t-shirt. A t-shirt that, in bold, arrogant letters, spelled out his entire plan. "I'm a husband for hire." The envelope was filled with photos, emails, and bank statements, a curated collection of his greatest hits, pictures of him with other wealthy marks, a signed contract between him and his investor, detailing their plan to destabilize my company and split the profits, a spreadsheet, in his own handwriting, listing my assets with a dollar value next to each one, titled Project EV. ROI. He hadn't just fallen into my trap. He'd built it himself with his own ego and greed. The judge's laughter died down. He looked at Michael, not with anger, but with pure, undiluted contempt. Michael's face was a mask of utter horror. The blood had drained away, leaving him pale and shaking. That arrogant grin was gone, replaced by the terrified grimace of a man who had just been utterly, publicly, and legally annihilated. "Mr. Reed," the judge said, his voice like ice, "it seems the only thing you invested in this marriage was a t-shirt." In that moment, without ever saying a word, I had spoken volumes. The revenge wasn't in a shout. It was in the deafening silence that followed the judge's laugh, as my husband's entire life of lies came crashing down around him in a single, humiliating instant. The gavel fell. The case was dismissed with prejudice. Michael didn't get a single cent. In fact, based on the evidence of fraud and embezzlement, he was ordered to repay the funds he'd stolen and is now facing serious criminal charges. His investor partners vanished. His reputation is ash. The last I heard, he'd left the country, a ghost of the man who thought he could steal a future he never built. For me, the silence after the storm was the loudest sound I've ever heard. The penthouse was empty. The echoes of his lies were finally gone. I sold the place. Too many ghosts. I kept the company, of course. It's mine. It was always mine. But I look at it differently now. It's not just an empire. It's a testament to my own resilience. I won. I got the ultimate revenge. Not just beating him, but reclaiming my peace. I don't hate him anymore. Hate is just a cage you build for yourself. I pity him. He thought wealth was something you could take. He never understood that true wealth, the kind that can't be stolen, is what you build with your own hands, your own mind, and your own integrity. This isn't just my story. It's a story about the American dream. We're taught to work hard, to build, to achieve. But we're also taught to be open, to trust, and to love. And that's the cruelest trick a predator can play. They weaponize our best qualities against us. They see our ambition not as inspiration, but as an opportunity. Our generosity is not kindness, but a weakness. The moral of this story isn't to never trust again. It's to trust smarter, to protect what you've built, not because you're cynical, but because you're wise. It's about the old-fashioned value of due diligence, not just in business, but in life. The most American revenge isn't about violence or screaming matches. It's about outsmarting them. It's about using the very system they tried to manipulate to deliver a justice so perfect. It's poetic. I looked for a fairy tale and found a war, but I fought it, and I won. So I leave you with this. What would you have done if you were in my shoes? When is trust a strength? And when does it become a vulnerability? Have you ever had a moment where you discovered someone close to you was living a double life? Share your story in the comments below, because sometimes the most powerful lessons come from sharing our own battles. If this story of justice served resonated with you, if you believe in karma and the power of a well-planned comeback, then do me a favor. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more tales of truth and consequence. Until next time.